Welcome to Reddit Aliens. What was the time your paranoia turned out to be justified? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. When I was in my second year of college, I had a math professor during my spring semester whose name felt very familiar to me. I'm really big on true crime, and after some research, I found out that her name matched the exact same of a woman who went missing 20 years ago. Further research showed that they were at the same college at the same time, and they were both around the same age. This made me really nervous about the whole thing, since all my life I used to talk about wanting to solve a cold case. I compared the two pictures of the people, and they looked strikingly similar. I thought I was crazy, and had the no way this could really be her mindset, and so I let the whole thing go. At the end of the semester, I went to her during office hours and outright brought it up. She told me it was her, and that she didn't go missing, but she ran away. She said her past life was difficult, and there was a lot of her parents lied to the media about. She told me all of the police speculation and evidence that pointed to her running away was exactly correct, and then turned to me and with a glare told me that nobody runs away for no reason. She made me promise to never speak about it ever again, and so I've been holding it in ever since. All that we can do in situations like this is to just simply trust your gut. Always. There was a guy who was in a leadership role in a volunteer organization I was a part of. He was nice, and I generally liked and respected him, but there was something about him that made me feel ill at ease. I felt like he pushed people's boundaries and seemed a little too close to some of the teenagers who participated in events with the org. We had people ranging from high school age to grandparents. He was openly poly, so I tried to tell myself I just needed to be more open-minded about his lifestyle and chided myself for feeling slightly uncomfortable around him. The other leaders of the organization were super smart, ethical people, so I felt like they felt this guy deserved a leadership role. He must be okay. I also told myself that he was just a father figure to the teens, not anything inappropriate. I told myself that someone who was actually sketchy probably wouldn't be so obvious and open about socializing with the teens, or else one of the other leaders would have noticed something off, but the feeling of mild sketchiness remained. You know what happened? What? What happened? This one time I actually did get stalked. I've got a lot of mental issues, so I always think people are plotting against me, but this one time, someone I met on Bumble genuinely did stalk me. Everyone's reaction was something like, "Are you off your meds again?" Which is reasonable, but that one time I actually was being stalked. Also, an ex of mine actually turned out to be absolutely despise me and is probably still writing songs about what a shitty person I am over a year later, which at first I wrote off as paranoia, but nah, he genuinely probably wishes I'm dead, which sucks, but oh well. I dated a guy and had the feeling that he lied to me about not dating other women. I found out he had a girlfriend the whole time and was cheating on her with another woman and blocked me because I didn't say I wanted to have his children after 2 dates. The second one was a friend, male, 52, of my mom, 16 at this time. Didn't trust him because I told him to not touch me and he wouldn't stop tickling my neck every time he visited us. Ugh. On Christmas, he grabbed my butt and I insulted him. He got angry and never talked to me again. We found out he was a pedophile. And because I didn't want to be with him, he tried to convince my sister, 11 at this time, to a sleepover in his apartment. 3 times now, I've become extremely paranoid while I was out, once at school, once at Legoland, once out with my friends, that something was wrong. I needed to go home and something bad had happened. One of my grandpas died, the other 2 were my pets had passed away. I walked inside after being dropped off from Legoland, ran up to my mom and asked if my sugar glider was dead. She said yes. Other 2, I didn't know specifically what happened, but I knew something was wrong. As you can imagine, now every time I get a bad feeling, I jump to the worst possible conclusion. Sometimes it's better to just be wrong. Last year, a drug dealer moved into my neighborhood. I was on mat leave. It's a pandemic, so I'm not leaving the house, and I have nothing better to do except watch and happen to notice every drop-off, pickup, and visitor. I started identifying the higher-ups and clientele, small town. One of them was legendary for stories I heard as a child. I started panicking, wondering if all those stories were true. My husband at first thought I was overreacting. He often went to bed early or worked away a lot, so it was me outside on those summer nights trying to enjoy our deck through the noise of people who had taken too much. people demanding more drugs, fights, etc. I felt like a sitting duck trying to sneak back into my house unnoticed and praying my baby wouldn't wake up and start crying through the baby monitor. I had been thinking of scenarios for weeks. What if there's a shootout? What if a deal goes wrong? What if the police stage a sting? What's the safest place to hide in my house for each scenario, and how can I get my son and I to safety? One night, I sheepishly brought it up to my husband and asked him to humor me and hear me out. I listed all scenarios I'd thought of and where I felt the best place was. He said I was right for most of them, critiqued a few, and made a plan for all three of us if we were home at the same time. 30 minutes later, as he was bathing our son, the drug dealer neighbor pulled up in a vehicle that I'd never seen before with back window blown out and an unfamiliar girl. He pulled out a shotgun from the back of the trunk, not even in the case. I ran to my husband and told him what I saw. 2 hours later, we were watching a movie and hear shouting. At first, I think it's in the background of the movie, but I start hearing names I know. We turn the lights out and look out the window, and he's strung out on something, threatening to shoot this girl he brought home with his shotgun. He saw us in our window and yelled at us. My husband immediately called out plan blank for this type of scenario. I crawled on my stomach across the house to our basement, and he crawled to our son's crib, got him, and joined me as we called the cops and waited. The gun retrieved that night didn't match the description of the gun I saw. My paranoia has not lessened. Worrying about my dog, his fur started to look dull and not right, and something felt off. A few weeks later, he had a fit, dislocated his hip, and started having more fits during the x-ray, and the vets couldn't wake him up. Every fit was damaging his brain, so he had to be put down. I knew it would happen one day, that he would die because of his brain condition, but I didn't expect it to take him that way, and so fast. When I was 19, female, I knew an older guy, late 50s, in a social scene. We worked together to put on events, and I always got a weird vibe from him, especially the few times we ended up alone together, planning and setting up stuff. Everyone loved him. He'd been in the social scene for ages, and was often hired to do events around the country, so I figured I was imagining things. A few years later, he was arrested at a Canadian border crossing with some underage girls, a boatload of cash, and hard drives full of CP. He went to jail. Another time, I got this weird vibe from the guy who lived across the street. We only ever waved or said hi as we did yard work, but something felt off. He was arrested just before Christmas and charged as a serial rapist. I'm going to trust my gut immediately from now on. Good call. I had a really messed up classmate. My first interaction with him made me uncomfortable and my skin crawl. Half of my body was struck by like lightning. He just said hi to me, but seeing his eyes with a maniac stare made me stay alert. As the year went by in the university, he was stalking me and my other classmates, especially the girls. He knew where I lived. I didn't give him my address and my habits. He entered to a classmate's house with the intention to frighten her and let her know that she will be his. In another occasion, he made a reaction that generated a lot of ammonia, and it caused the department to evacuate. He, unfortunately, is very good at chemistry and knows how to make a lot of violent reactions and nano compounds. That dude is now in a low profile because he was molesting one of her students. He tried to contact me to give him shelter, but I refused.
A little advice from a slightly older man. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it usually is a duck.
That guy that kept chatting my girlfriend up and accidentally linking porn gifs to her on her MSN that she told me not to worry about, and insisted they were just friends. Yeah, turns out I wasn't just being paranoid. One day, she suddenly loses interest out of nowhere in a relationship that was otherwise going well. And hey, what do you know? Not even a month later, she tells me there's something she thinks I should know. She and the other guy are dating now. It just sort of happened, She said, oh well, whatever. We're teenagers. I can't really hold it against her, but it's something I'll probably always be a tiny bit salty about when I think back on it, because I trusted her. I feel you. I always thought everyone hated me and just tolerated me because they dug themselves into a hole by interacting with me and needed a way out. Well, my dad died, and wouldn't you know it, the only ones left are my mom and my boss. I'm not saying that either of them are there for me. Those are just the two people I talk to. My mom because I live with her, and my boss because I need to know what shit to get done for the day. To be honest, in terms of people that are there for me, there are none. My mom has a good support group and is dealing with everything as best she can. When she gets home after a day with her friends, she expects that I also just got back from a day out with my friends, despite the fact that I've told her multiple times no one will even so much as show the effort to text me back. She thinks that because she has a good support group and is doing okay, that I also have a good support group and am also doing okay. None of her friends even so much as ask about me, so I'm not sure who the F she thinks is checking up on me. I spent my whole life preparing for this moment, but it's like one of those instances where you can prepare for it all you want, but actually living it is much worse. Had a bear trashing my chicken coop. He had been doing it after I would put them up. One night, I had grabbed my headlamp and was about to go out. I don't know why, but tonight I had decided to turn the porch light on. This is a side porch me and my family used to store trash and chicken food. I opened the door and not even 30 feet away was the bear. He had been going for the chicken food. If I had not turned on the light, he could have walked right onto the porch, and it could have been a different story. I walked back in and screamed, "Bear!" My father proceeds to grab his revolver and fire 3 rounds into the hill, scares the bear away, and doesn't come back for 2 days. I hated my ex-boyfriend's brother on sight. Just looking at him made my skin crawl. His behavior after I met him only worsened my feeling toward him. He was a crazy meth head, strange and sketchy looking. People were coming by the house looking for him after he moved out. He came over one day, tweaked to the eyeballs, and asked to borrow a hacksaw to cut someone's finger off. Another time he came over with a duffel bag, the contents of which he would not say, and asked my ex to keep for him. Fortunately, he refused. He took so much crystal, he had paranoid delusions, and in a really stupid effort to make him feel safer, my ex let him borrow his machine pistol. While he's hearing voices, seeing things that aren't there, and saying people were following him and moving things around in his house. Also, while his pregnant girlfriend was there too. I wanted to break my foot off in my ex's ass for that. I made a big deal about telling the ex and his dad that I was scared to death of his brother from day one, but in truth, I was building up plausible deniability because I made up my mind that if he ever even looked like he was threatening either one of us, I would kill him. A year and a half after I broke up with my ex, his brother ambushed 4 sheriff's deputies trying to serve him with an eviction notice and shot 2 of them. I don't know if he's been tried yet because pandemic, but I know for sure he's going away for at least 20 years. Good riddance. I was dating a guy, and there was something just off about him. He did everything a good boyfriend would do and never gave me a reason to not trust him, but 2 weeks into dating this guy, I started feeling paranoid that he wasn't trustworthy. There was a voice in my head that would say, "He's going to break your trust, be careful." I tried to dismiss this voice by telling myself that maybe I was being too anxious, or maybe I was overthinking because none of his behavior was suspicious. A month later, I found out that he was cheating on me. I wasn't even shocked. I was just disappointed. One spring morning, as I was putting on my jacket and shoes to leave for work, I glanced at my warmer boots and thought, what if I need to suddenly move quickly? Safer to wear running shoes. On my way home after work, a couple of guys tried to rob me, and it went very wrong for them as I could move and box well enough to handle things. Had a good time and a funny story for later, as both of them were ultimately arrested, all thanks to that morning's paranoia. Pretty much most of them, but a good specific one would be the one time I was driving down a street at night with some friends in the car. I had my phone connected to a mount on my dashboard with a video playing. I took the phone down and handed it to my front seat passenger because my intuition was saying cop in my stomach. Everyone is staring at me at this point and they're all quiet. He asks if he can put it back and I say not yet. We take a turn and pass a cop only a minute after I took the phone down. Somehow, whenever I ignore my initial thought about something, I end up being wrong.
Ultimately, what you do that you feel is best for you and your family is what matters. You shouldn't judge other people's choices either.
2. Both from childhood. 1. I was adopted by my grandparents, so my aunts became my sisters by law, so the sister I'm closest in age to is 20 years older than I am. Anyway, she started dating this guy, and I couldn't put my finger on the problem, but I didn't like him a single ounce. He compounded that when I gave him a picture I had drawn, and as soon as my sister was out of the room, he balled it up and threw it away while making creepy, intense eye contact. They had 7 kids. He abused each and every one of them in horrific ways for years. 2. My godmother and her husband rescued a failed working pup from his first home, and he was incredibly aggressive. He just gave the worst predator vibes. Her older daughter, 9, convinced me, 5, to give him a bone directly into his food dish, which he was eating from. She said she didn't like that. I thought he was a mean dog, and I needed to learn he was okay. I was petrified, but I did, and he mauled me. Tore through my cheek, lip, ear, and the jaw-throat area. Just absolute luck he didn't tear an artery. He had to be put down. The daughter slapped me the next time she saw me because I killed her dog. When we bailed on family vacation because there were members of my family who hadn't gotten around to getting their COVID vaccines, the entire group, sans us, came home sick after picking up the Rona up somewhere on their trip. Even those who had gotten their shots and boosters got sick, shocker, because they were all in close proximity of one another, living in one big house for a week. We get hassled and poked at for not attending family dinners and get-togethers where not everyone has been vaxxed, call us paranoid, but it's been 2 years and we haven't gotten it yet. We have a 2-year-old who, like every other kid under 5, can't get the vax yet, so can be damn sure we're not excited to come to the birthday party or random dinner if everyone there isn't caught up. I'm sorry you'd love to see or have us there, but if you can't get Sharon and Stan to get a shot or wear a mask, we're going to excuse ourselves as long as it takes. And that's your choice. I had a friend. This was recently, or so I thought. I knew him in real life. He was in a Discord server of mine. I always kind of had a bad feeling about him. He was hell-bent on finding ways to make fun of people, despite the fact that he was very obviously trying too hard to be a mainstream popular kid. Anyhow, him and his online friend started having some very inappropriate conversations in the main chat. My server had a very obvious no not safe for work rule and no designated channel. It's literally the second rule, and I asked them to stop. Naturally, my friend, thinking he's hilarious and popular and can get away with anything, starts posting gay porn in my server. We're both minors. The server is full of minors, so I snapped and banned him from all of my servers. He had been trying to see how far he could get it for a while at that point. The server he did this in the rules, specifically said, and I quote, "Absolutely no not safe for work content is allowed in this server. Refusal to follow this rule will get you banned. There are no exceptions." He started whining in DMs about how it was only a joke and it was perfectly legal because minors shouldn't even be on Discord anyway. He himself is a minor. He's saying it would be their fault for looking, even though he posted some very large, zoomed-in GIFs. Of course, he was completely making things up to get away with it, so I proceeded to explain to him the exact rule about it, and he still insisted that it wasn't his fault, that he posted that content in a server with some 30 minors. He proceeded to get pissed off at me and threatened me with blackmail, exposing my personal info online, etc. Basic Instagram popular kid wannabe threats. So I took screenshots of his threats, showed them to him, let him know that I could quite literally get the police involved if I wanted to, and he kept on making threats. Empty threats, of course, because nothing has come from it so far. He hasn't dared to try and spread rumors or anything. I could still easily get the police involved. The only reason I didn't is because I don't want to put a damper on his future potentially, regardless of how dumb he is. Sorry if the post had misspelled words or poor grammar. I'm typing very fast. You did great.